here today. And we're already giggling about this one in the green room, but the title is sustainable. But fundamentally, I'm sure we've all been in these environments or in these areas. You talk to people, they're growing, it's super exciting until they hit the wall. And walls happens when your systems buckle under the pressure, when, in my language, people are scaling chaos, which means they're still in startup mode. You cannot scale bad processes. When you do, you get more chaos than revenue, and you get the wrong kind of growth. You get this kind of bad, dark, evil growth that you get stuck in holes that you can't. How to put systems in that give you predictable and resilient and stable growth, and basically how to at least look at handling scaling without breaking your team or operations. When I talk about weak links, operational frameworks, leadership rhythms, and sustainable systems, and really what at its core, I guess, would be Kaizen, a culture of continuous improvement. So, that being the case, who wants to lead off and start wrestling with this beast?
Go ahead, Rob. I talked too much already.
Tell a horror story here, right? And let's protect all the names, change all the names.
Yes, let's protect the innocent.
Yeah, to protect ourselves from lawsuits, right? So, as it goes, say you were a $120 million business and you had 80% annual turnover. 80%. An average salary of $100,000 a year, which is a real number, relative to that class of turnover. $51 million annualized cost of turnover per year.
Oh, that hurts.
Geez, Rob, that sounds like almost half your value.
It sounds like that really happened, right? And they say things like, "Shut up, Rob, you don't know what you're talking about," right? So, fast forward. I said, "Thou shalt not scale with 80% turnover. If you 5x your business in 5 years, you will 5x $51 million in unnecessary cost. That will become $250 million, right? You're going to sell your problem. Shut up, Rob. You don't know what you're talking about." Okay. And then fast forward 18 months. They're now a $50 million a year business.
Wow.
They opened too many new locations too quickly before the initial expansions were profitable and sustainable, right?
Yikes.
Changed the 5X before they got the systems done, before they got their retention normalized, and now they're at risk of going out of business, right? So that's what happens if you don't do the things we're talking about today, right? There are inflection points, there are key milestones. You have to get your systems right. You got to get your people process right. You got to get some leadership right. I won't even go into their comp structure and how it fuels turnover. Right? So when the salesperson quits, the sales manager gets all their commissions. What does that incentivize the sales manager to do?
So it's scheduled on this subject. We're going to have fun with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is an important topic for anyone looking to grow their business, to cross inflection points.
I am so glad that you brought this up, because that is one of my biggest pet peeves, is people focusing on hyper growth, right? It's like, do you want to ride a submarine with a screen door under like into the North Atlantic?
Yes.
Like, no, you don't want to do that. Like, and that's what we're talking about, is all of these leaks. And so I so appreciate you bringing that up, because that's exactly what most of these companies are doing. And a lot of times founders don't realize it. CEOs don't realize it. Company teams don't realize it, because all they can see is what is working.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Rob, you're the culture consultant. You probably know this better than I do, but the other thing that we tend to focus on is there's a fine line, and I think that what they focus on is creating groupthink. And so if you're a Rob who's out there saying, you guys are costing yourselves $51 million per year and you don't even realize it, shut up, Rob. You don't know what you're talking about, because you're not on board with the vision, man. You don't get it. You don't know where we're trying to take this thing. We're going to the moon, man. We used refrigerator parts, right? Like, doesn't matter. We're going to the moon, baby. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that I often have to urge executives to think about. Is it's not what is going right. It's so I how do I say this? I lived in Asia for 2 years, and one of the things that should be there, right? And what Americans notice really well is what's not there, right? So you have this skill set of, it's like, oh, this should be here, but it's not here, versus this isn't here, or this is here, but it shouldn't be here, right? Things that you have to, as an executive team, if you're looking to scale an organization, what you have to learn to do is both types of thinking. And just because someone is looking at this situation and saying, hey, you know, what has been working up till now is not working anymore, and we've got to fix something, does not mean that they're going to be rewarded, because they're the ones who actually care about your company. They're willing to be courageous and stand up and speak.
Yeah.
You know, there's a company, I'll say this and then I'll shut up, but there's a company in Utah, and it's a culture, really. One of the things that I've noticed particularly in Utah SaaS culture is we think that we hit product market fit way too soon, and then we build a sales organization. And that's what Utahns are really, really good at. If you want to build a sales organization, hire a returned missionary Mormon from Utah, because they can sell, and they can do it. And that's what they do, right? They don't stabilize the product. And if you come, so carrying this to its conclusion, there's a company in Utah called Domo. It's 9 figures now. Their customer churn is massive compared to the other businesses of their size and scale. It's like a 2. And if they don't fix it, they're going to go out of business, basically. And for smaller businesses, you don't want to put yourself in that situation where you have a $500 million company on your shoulders and the livelihoods of everyone on that team relying on your ability to fix and stabilize a product that should have been fixed and stabilized, $450 million ago. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very well said. Since there are 2 things that I could think of while you're both speaking that relied on unchecked growth at all costs, and that's viruses and tumors. Neither of which I want to invest in.
Right. You know what's interesting, though? I love that you brought that up. It's interesting, though, because if you think about marketing, what is the goal that marketing is always pushing for these days? Viral growth. I want viral growth. viral growth kills the host.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this week went, and we had a early days meeting today with a product developer who's awesome, just cares so much about the end user. Couldn't be happier to have this person. It's so early for them that they're just working on product market fit, and that's her job. There's a great alliance there. What was interesting is all the rest of the questions that came up about RevOps. And I just kept on going back to, and I didn't drop it in the meeting because it's such a cliche, but it's like, is it the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? Like, wouldn't you want to sort this out so that you can go from seed to startup and build it on a stable foundation, and just, instead of just like hair on fire, right? All the way through scaling chaos, right? Like according to the book and the rules, like, oh, you hit 10 million, you're no longer a startup, but you get inside and it's like, nothing here tells us that this is scalable besides the fires.
And the other lesson that is probably relevant here is, to the longer you wait to solve them, it is always cheaper to pay now, even if you have to throw it away and replace it later. It's always cheaper to pay now. Hey, let's get an applicant tracking system as soon as we have to recruit software and do this. But we might need a new one in 10 years. Yeah. And there will be new ones and better ones and updates. And right? Like, don't block yourself out of doing the cheesy thing early.
Mm-hmm. And you may not realize just how cheap and easy it is, but you know, again, you can talk to people and find out just how much more expensive it is to clean it up later. I look at this stuff from the perspective of health, right? Like, come on, like, stop eating sugar today.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing that's interesting is the product, which is what most people will think of when we talk about this. But oftentimes, once you hit about 10 million, unless you're running an absolute shit show, like, the product is pretty okay. Right? Dev knows what they're doing. And now with generative AI and all the other tools that they have, like, the product will work. Most of the time, the things that you need to start looking at are not and fixing in order to scale to that next. You've coded it in some really unstable platform. I worked with one team. They were trying to scale something that was built in Drupal, which is only meant to have about 1,500 users. And they had 10 times that, and it was crashing literally every day, right? And they couldn't, for whatever reason, they could not bring themselves to recode the whole thing from the ground up. They just, like, they couldn't figure out how to do that. And
so, is that the house made of straw or the one of sticks? I forget.
You know, either way, it's going up in flames. But unless you're them, most of the time, what we're talking about is positioning, marketing, sales in here to handle the demands that my customers are going to put on me, because software is really easy to scale, right? The software itself, all you have to do is pay a little more money, spin up more servers, blah blah blah, right? The hard part is getting the people in, getting the sales, and I think that's really where you should be focusing most of your time, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the difficulty in scaling, and going to see all of your profits completely walk out the door, just flush them down the drain.
Yeah.
And it's easier with software in one really particular way. Because when the customer churns, you don't get anything back. As soon as you start selling a tangible good, the customer will throw it back through the drive-through window at you.
Yes.
Yeah.
They will return to Amazon. They will.
Have you guys seen the video of the guy who drove the car through the car dealer's lobby, and he gets out of the car and he said he had tried to return and he yells, "I told you, I don't want your effing car."
Right. So you have to be able to process credit, right? You have the good, right? And a lot of these super ambitious hard goods manufacturers, right? Food products, consumables, whatever. You're going to get returns. You got to have a system for that. Have a process for that. You got to have accounting for that. You got to think all the way through the process, right? Parts availability for automakers, right? There's a legal obligation.
Yeah, this starts to open a bit of a can of worms. I'm happy that we're arriving here now. The way that I tend to look at things is very process based, and I think one of the most important things is realizing that as soon as you think you have a revenue model, right, which can go right down to your offer, like, we're going to help X person get Y result in Z time. Cool. And then what's the price? But as soon as you have those two, you're beginning on your revenue model, and immediately you should invest in data. Right? What data? Any data you can possibly gather.
Yes.
Right? Because it's back to that cliche, because the best time to plant a tree is 20. I'm thinking real life now, a company that's doing $8 million and ask about their data and find out there is none. Shocking. But again, like, without revenue and data, you can't do math. If you can't do math, then you actually don't know what you're operating. It's not just like speedometer cables broken, but also you apply to blindfold.
Yeah.
And then merge back on the highway.
I'll go one worse than that, Jacob, right? Who sells a product that requires service and replacement. And he's hurting for revenue. And I said, hey, do you have the list of customers who brought to call them up and say, hey, you need a new light bulb, right? Hey, you need a new filter, right? That's your quickest path to revenue, is establish relationships with someone who has a consumable purchase waiting. That's margin 2. And he goes, no, I have no idea who I sold those to. Oh, man.
Wow.
Can we please
That
help?
hurts.
Just
hurts.
all your customer records. I'll put them into AI and say, who bought a blankety blank?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, done.
Well, and
to hang on that for a second, revenue 2.5, 68% of people are willing to give a referral if you ask.
Right.
So if that list was 100 long, there are 68 leads sitting there inside of a Christmas card.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I want to call out here is we're talking very tactically right now. One of the things, I had a mentor who pointed this out. He says that when you want to grow a successful business, now this guy had grown a business, multiple businesses to be 8 figures. One he'd hit 10 figures. And one of the things that he talked about is he said, listen, this is the order I follow every single time. Vision, then people, then process. Act the right people with the right skill sets. Once you get the people in place, they put in the processes. And so, one of the things that I'm hearing is that a lot of these people aren't exactly clear on their vision. Because if they were clearer on their vision and where they wanted to go, instead of just letting things sort of like ooze and just kind of go, right? If they were clear, then they would be attracting the people. You're thinking of this wrong. What we need to be sure that we're getting data as quickly as possible. Whatever data we can get, we need it now. Whatever we can do to retain our team right now, even if it's just sending them a gift basket at Christmas time, like we need to be doing that now. Whatever we can do to be talking to these customers to understand what it is they think they're buying, we need to do that right now, right? And then we come together and we put the thing together, right? That's how businesses start and scale. And the tactics naturally fall into place because you've got the right people who will get the thing done. But all to vision. And we know it's not compelling enough. So when we get involved, we tell people, or not we tell people, but when we bring the team together, because we don't feel that the vision is compelling enough, whenever someone like a Rob comes in and criticizes things, or like a Jacob or like a Zach comes in and criticizes, hey, I think that we're approaching this the wrong way. We let our egos get involved and say, oh, that guy's just not on the bus. He doesn't see the vision. Well, actually, maybe we see the vision more clearly than you do. Or that employee, that team member sees the vision more clearly than you.
I've got 2 add-ons for you there, and I do completely agree. I think that's very congruent. Secondary to that, on the one side, with these calls we're having, this conversation we're having this morning, this working in a silo thing, right? Like it's a small team around, they're getting some pull in the marketplace. They were going to launch, but decided to pull it apart and rebuild it better. And I think there's a huge lost opportunity there because they, in my opinion, should have launched the thing that they weren't proud of to get people interacting with it, to find out what they wanted, so they could add that into the second iteration, instead of just rebuilding it in the basement and hoping that it makes more sense to the market, which they haven't spoken to. Habit that a lot of these visionaries have of we call it woodshedding in music, right? Like they're like, an artist would disappear for a year because they left it and everybody's like, oh my God, you're so much better, right? But they had an audience they were playing before that. It's hard to get traction if nobody knows who you are, what you do. Right. Secondary to that is when you do go forward and start interacting with those people, a lot of times that visionary has the same thing with the market as they do with the inside help that they just can't see the vision. They just can't. And
yes,
that's really super valuable product or user feedback from the market that you're trying to enter. And so maybe value it. I'm just suggesting like get it out the back sooner than later, because that's some of the data that we've been talking about.
Yes, 100%. 100%. That's very well said, because I think that we undervalue that, especially as visionaries, because visionaries are told, you've got to, well, let's put it this way. Visionaries are told that they've got to be the next asshole Steve Jobs, right? They've got to be the next, and the market is stupid if they don't see it. And it's like, actually, do you have any idea how many times Steve Jobs pivoted? Do you have any idea how keyed in he was to users and like how they were using his software? Do you have any idea?
UI, right?
Yeah. And it's something that it's a myth that we have bought into, that that visionary people don't listen to the market. The Riask and Zuckerberg and all of those cats, right? Dorsey, all those tech bros. It wasn't an if, it was a when. And if it wasn't Facebook, it would have been something else. Because those guys, they knew how to pivot. They knew how to take the right course of action. And they listened at the right moment. And so that's where that data comes in. Because if you aren't collecting that data from the market, you're not listening at the right moment. And I've seen it before.
Quite often are, and I'll just add one little piece. I think a cultural cliche out there, just the same way as like entrepreneurship was a badge of honor for around a decade. Whether or not you belong in that environment, everybody should become one, is another badge of honor, right? So to be, that visionary leader and be like, nobody understands me, and then check, another successful day. It's maybe common, right? Like it's something we're all taught to believe.
It's almost like you can be understood and rich, or you can be misunderstood and poor.
Yeah, like many other artists.
Yeah, and look at Picasso, right? Like, just speaking of art, Picasso was a genius at business. Absolutely ruthless. Like, the guy was a complete scumbag. He would have, just as an aside, he would have multiple mistresses. He would have them, he would schedule a date at the same time. So these women would show up and they would literally fight over this guy, like literally tooth and nail, right? Just absolute monster of a person. And he was known, like, Picasso was really hard to get provenance on his paintings, because if he saw a painting that he did that he didn't like, he'd say, no, I didn't paint that. Even though he painted like once a day. He was just would churn out stuff like crazy. But then if he saw something that he did like, he knew he didn't paint, that, like, oh yeah, I totally painted that. That wasn't fine. I just forgot to sign it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, just he understood the game. He wasn't like just some creative genius that then all of a sudden the world appreciated him. No, he learned, he knew how to communicate, and he produced at a prolific level.
Right. And obviously understood positioning.
Yes.
So what are
first and foremost, talk to your customers, especially and even if they're not your customer yet.
But
never waste that opportunity to get out there and in front of people and play the what if game. Like, what if I built this? What if we did that? What if? Because in RevOps, you wait to find it out until you hit 10 million. right? What else should we build? How else should we broaden it? Who else wants to use it? Do that as early as possible. That's some of the other data, the source. And again, like that whole idea of like get out of the basement and onto the street. Start talking to people about this stuff. If you can't find them, I don't know, like go to bus stops. People are gathering.
Focus groups.
Yeah.
Ask your friends, ask your family, ask people who aren't your friends and not your family, right?
Yeah.
People don't have to be nice to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I would add to that, also be sure that you talk to only people who've bought something like it before. So you have to be very clear on what the problem is, because you should only talk to people who have actively tried solving that problem before. Because any feedback they give you, if they haven't done that, is purely speculative.
Yeah. And you're going into a new market, then talk to people who've worked in the components, right? Like I'm 100% sure that when Jeff Bezos got his friends and family money, he had to explain, like, it's a bookstore on the internet. These two things are coming together. And they're like, wow, you're crazy. And he's like, I know, but trust me. But he was able to explain it.
Yeah. Man, that guy understood how lazy Americans are.
Right.
All of us. But yeah.
I agree. Were there any other takeaways you wanted to add there, Jacob?
I mean, I feel like I had a really big piece. I'd love to land on.
Product, vision, people, process, right? You have the compelling vision, it attracts the people, you get the people who build the process. And it's the people and the process that scales, but the vision has to be compelling enough that they actually want to go there. The second thing is that oftentimes scaling is not about your ancillary to delivering your product. And oftentimes we don't think about that. We don't think about the marketing.
Yeah.
We don't think about the sales. We don't think about the delivery. We don't think about the accounting. We don't think about the hiring of all of the people who need to be involved in the team, right? But all of those are key components in what scaling
that's
like.
Really well said, Zach, and super important, because I agree. A lot of people's version of scaling, if they're doing any math at all, is just like how many more monies for how many more leads to ram through the pipeline. And it is so much more. You're absolutely right on with that. Also, the process is the thing.
Yes, I like that. I really like that.
Rob, anything else you want to add for closing notes?
There are different kinds of people. We talked about respecting the people who are willing to raise their hand and say, I'm not sure I agree. Right? The uncomfortable voice in the room. Sometimes the most valuable. It's the only truth to say around you. Sometimes, right? Yay, vision. I see an Achilles heel that might slow you down. So let's fix this before you get bigger. The other thing on people is sometimes people are really good at growing a business from X to Y, but they're not the people who can grow it from Y to Z, even if they're your friends. And know yourself,
knowing yourself,
right? Like $100 million a year business is not the same thing as a 500. Is not the same thing as a billion. And if you can't, or if you can but your friends can't, there's a place for everybody. Sure, take care of your tribe. Yay. That doesn't mean make a completely incompetent person the VP of whatever. right? Because you're handicapping
And
yourself.
vice versa,
Right.
recognizing that incompetent person is you. I've got a, personal connection to one of my mentors. His take home was 6 billion and change, but the thing that got him from where he was to that final stage was realizing he wasn't functional or happy as CEO. And he stepped back and brought a pro in, and that's how they got through that next stage.
I love that you pointed that out. I actually just looked up the definition of incompetence, and it says the condition of lacking power to act with effectiveness. And I think I don't have the attention.
Yeah.
I can't stay focused on this. This isn't interesting to me anymore. I don't have the skills is also, right? But all of those wrap up into what I hear you guys both talking about. So I love that you pointed that out, because at some point or another, all of us are going to be incompetent. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. And you have to recognize it and move forward and set goals and make plans to fix it,
right,
or get out of the way.
And I know every stage of this story because, again, the person I'm connected to was with them the whole way. And they went from seed to startup to scale, which are the first 3 stages of the business. And when it was time to go into maturity and go public, to grown past them, they'd fallen out of love with the part of the business that they love, because the role had expanded past that, and it was so crystal clear eventually.
Yes.
Right? That was the thing that actually worked. And yeah, I'd say that's a huge piece, right? Is understand that it's not necessarily hand it off, but take on partners as your growth and trust them with your vision.
right.
Find the people.
100%.
Awesome.
This is perfect. Thank you guys so much for your time, and the rest of you out there who are catching this now or later. And we're here every week.